Well, I'm delighted to have today a seafarer, a captain, a serial founder, Danielle Doggett. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thank you, Raf. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm really, really interested in what you're building with Veer. It's a clean shipping boat. Is that a bad description or a terrible description?
No, that's not a bad description. So, Veer is a company that I founded around 2 years ago, and we are going to be bringing clean shipping to an industrial level.
It looks pretty cool on the videos. I'm gonna dive into this, but first of all, your background is absolutely not like most people that we talk to. Typically, I guess people do degrees and stuff and end up in some kind of industry, and then I don't know, have this kind of path where they kind of want more purpose in their life or just see an opportunity and build a really interesting impact company. But your background's completely different. So tell me about how you started out in the world of boats.
Well, I have to thank my grandmother for that, because at age 13, she signed me up to sail on board the brigantine St. Lawrence II, which is out of Kingston, Ontario on the Great Lakes. And essentially, ever since I sailed on the St. Lawrence II, I've been, I don't want to, I hesitate to use the word addicted, but in love with sailing and with the waterways in which these vessels sail.
And you did that and decided that you just, your whole life was going to be that, and you wanted to work in that domain? Or was it just like an obvious like evolution of like being on the water and then just saying this is too good, I don't want to be a landlubber?
I don't think it was necessarily a decision I made consciously. I remember when I was younger, around 13 and those early teenage years, I had some significant confidence issues and challenges, as many teenagers would. But I found that working on tall ships such as the St. Lawrence II gave me so much freedom, so much confidence, so much ability, whether it was climbing the mast or taking the helm, that I couldn't get away from it. Ever since then, I just knew that was something I loved and that empowered me.
I think it is addictive as well. I mean, I've been on boats and I've never wanted to get off them, because there's just something incredibly connected to nature. Being powered by wind is just a really inspiring experience. Tell me how you started to then move into being a captain on Blue Star.
Oh, yes. Well, when I joined Blue Star Navigation, which was they're operating a vessel called Schooner Ruth out of Barbados, that was a very interesting job offer. And I remember sitting at a cafe on the boardwalk in Phillipsburg, St. Martin, really wondering what my next steps were going to be in life, because I had just stepped off the vessel Tres Hombres, and I didn't know what my next phase would be. As a sailor, you end up on a Caribbean island looking around thinking, did I make the right choice? But I received an email from Mr. Ian Dash and said, please come over to Barbados, help us rig up our newly built 100-foot schooner. And then we're going to launch it. And this will be the largest ship of any kind ever built or launched in the history of the country. And you can imagine that was very exciting. So my company, Topsail Rigging, went over and we rigged up the whole ship from scratch with new rigging and wire splices, everything. And then I was the captain for the launch. So the first second of me ever being a captain was launching the largest ship ever built in that country. And if you look on YouTube, you type in Schooner Ruth, Ruth, and Barbados, it's quite a wild thing to look at.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll try and put some links actually, because all of your endeavors, the boats are absolutely beautiful, aren't they? I mean, we're gonna end up talking about ugly big old shipping boats, but I mean, schooners are just beautiful. They're very kind of Jack Sparrow, shall we say?
Yeah, and that's something that I take into consideration, or something that I sort of ponder from time to time, is how did an industry, because sailing ships was an industry, how did an industry go from being one of the most beautiful things you can look at, most aesthetically pleasing images you can conjure, to one of the most unattractive? And that transition is an interesting one.
It's kind of like any, I guess, industrialization in a way. Have you digged into exactly, I guess it's when you started to having steel-hulled boats and instead of wood was one major area, because I guess boats got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then how do you power that? So diesel, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting you ask that, because I agree but also disagree a little bit, because there are so many beautiful steel ships out there. And even today, if we were to look at as you mentioned previously, the Vendée Globe or these Volvo Ocean Race vessels, there's still a beauty to them. And I think the distinction can be made when we switch from renewable energies, so natural, if you'll call them energies, to fossil fuel or industrialized energies. Because you can have a massive steel sailing ship and it's going to look gorgeous, or you can have a wind turbine, and subject to, personal belief, some people would say that new age or old age wind turbines are really beautiful. But it's when we go to generating energy from fossil fuels or some of those other sources that the beauty gets lost.
Yeah, and I guess function over form to some extent, but maybe it's just the fact that so much of our goods is, shipping is a massive industry, right? It's pretty much everything we buy has been on a boat at some point, and I think it's completely invisible to most of us. I'm fortunate because I live in Singapore. We've got one of the busiest trading routes and busiest docks in ports in the world, actually, and it's an unbelievable sight to behold. I've been with friends taking a small boat out through the yacht club and passing just incredibly huge tankers, looking up. It's like you're underneath a huge building. So they're quite formidable, and I just think we forget just how much of our everyday goods were made somewhere else and have made these huge voyages.
Absolutely. Just before we go on, I just wanted to say that the point I was trying to convey was that with renewables, so whether we're talking about wind or water, it's that the object is interacting with a natural flow of something. So a modern wind turbine can look very beautiful because it's interacting with those wind currents, and the hull of a ship moves with the waves, and there's a natural element to that aesthetic that you can't get away from because it's the most efficient form. Just responding to what you've said, yeah, it's approximately 90% of everything we touch and own has been moved on an ocean vessel, and yet how many people have even seen a ship like that? It's a huge difference, and very much out of sight, out of mind.
And I guess you were passing, or you've been used to dodging shipping tankers, as a captain and as a sailor and a seafarer. So what happened between when you founded Topsail Rigging and that fantastic experience that you had with Blue Star? What then made you decide to found your own kind of shipping yard in Costa Rica? So talk me through that, and please bring us on to the other work you did with founding Sail Cargo, because both of these are beautiful projects.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm Sail Cargo Inc. The mission of Sail Cargo Inc. is to prove the value of clean shipping. And when I founded that in 2014, I knew that I wanted to build a vessel or a series of vessels to transport cargo, whether it was emission-free or if we're steering away from that term, in a clean manner. And I wasn't sure where that first vessel would be based, whether it was the Great Lakes or perhaps we'd build in Guyana or a Caribbean island. And then some friends of mine, including a co-founder of the SEBA project, Lynx Guimond, said, please come to Costa Rica. It's such a beautiful country and we can build that here. And so having explored several other options, Costa Rica really seemed like a beautiful place and a very appropriate place to make an eco shipyard. Not only was the Army abolished in 1949, making it very peaceful, it's also one of the greenest nations in the world by policy, and the forests are growing. The national forests are increasing in volume every year, which is almost unique in the world. So yeah, going to Costa Rica really made sense. Although I didn't speak any Spanish, so it was pretty challenging.
So you decided to move to Costa Rica, and that's where you started work on the first wooden vessel, right? So this proposition is essentially saying, hey, shipping, it's done in big ugly boats, but it can also be done in the kind of beautiful tall ships or schooners that we've seen in the past. So is this kind of a bit nostalgic in a way, like creating a beautiful old wooden boat? And tell us about some of the challenges and how you get backing for a project like that. Is there demand for people to ship things in that manner?
There is a huge demand for people to ship things in that manner. And when we say that manner, it doesn't necessarily mean with a some people call antiquated style of vessel, but that manner meaning clean shipping. There's a huge demand for that. We laid the keel of SEBA on January 8th, 2019 in Punta Morelos, Costa Rica, and have been building what will be the largest clean cargo ship in the world ever since. Now, when I can say that sentence, Saba will be the largest clean cargo ship in the world, it's really quite an interesting statement to make, because given the fact that Saba is only 136 feet or 36 meters on deck and can carry the equivalent of 9 TEU, so 9 20-foot containers. That's not a big ship. And yet I am able to make that statement. Saba will be the largest clean cargo ship in the world. And to me, that really exposes how far behind the shipping industry is to say that a bunch of people with machetes in the mangrove can make that claim. And it's true. It is true to this day.
And that's, I guess, because shipping is just so big, right? It's like everything has got bigger and bigger and bigger. So, like, how do you deal with, what's the cargo? I'm interested in for if you can fit 9 containers on, what do people put in that they desperately want to be able to say that they've shipped in a zero carbon way?
So Saba and the newly acquired vessel, which looks nearly identical, Vega, will be loading cargo in what we call break bulk. So whether it's palletized or sacks or essentially loaded in a more traditional method. So the Saba can carry the equivalent of 9 containers, but won't actually load containers. The most popular cargo that we have to date is transporting green coffee beans, and we are extremely grateful to Cafe William, who is originally from Quebec and has a headquarters in New Jersey. And Cafe William is one of the most inspiring companies I've ever come in contact with in terms of policy and internal corporate policy for environmental decisions. So they'll be fully loading all the vessels with green coffee beans northbound from
a boatload of coffee, literally.
Oh yeah.
Pretty tempting to dip into that. I was hoping you were going to say rum at one point, but we need to obviously drop the pirate analogies as soon as possible.
I did get to work on the set of Pirates of the Caribbean, and so that I got to tick that little pirate box, but we don't really bring that into the cargo world.
That's amazing. In what capacity?
As a rigger.
Oh, right.
So,
amazing.
And I actually got to teach. I did get to speak to Johnny Depp, but I didn't get to give him this lesson. I did get to teach his stunt folks how to stay slide with no hands. So that was pretty fun.
Amazing. That's definitely a good little diversion there. So basically, this is what stage is this in now? The Saba, the first of the fleet.
So Saba is still being built, and she'll need another 1.5 years approximately of construction. But due to the ever increasing demand for shipping now, Sail Cargo Inc., when I was still CEO, we decided to purchase an existing vessel, which is called Vega. And so myself and a sort of very experienced team that I have a lot of trust in, we all went over to Sweden and started the delivery of Vega. And Vega will actually transport cargo early next year for Cafe William.
Amazing. And will it be between Europe and other destinations, or is it coming out this way?
So we will be on the eastern seaboard of the Caribbean and US, so Colombia being in the top of South America, and then up the eastern seaboard, and we'll be delivering to New Jersey and possibly into Canada as well. So
in this process, you've also founded a not-for-profit kind of shipping yard in Costa Rica as well. Can you tell us more about that? Yes,
our non-profit association in Costa Rica is called Astillero Verde, which is Spanish for green shipyard. And Astillero Verde is a shipyard for coastal communities, and it is an affiliate 501c3, which is a challenging thing to achieve when you're a Costa Rican association. And as the shipyard is located in the financially poorest district of the entire country, it was extremely important to our team to be able to bring even more to our community members and give back even more. So just through Saba, the construction of Saba, which is a for-profit, and Sail Cargo Inc., which are for-profit companies, we're already bringing in a significant amount of foreign investment, connecting with local producers, ensuring we're bringing in living wages for the community. But we wanted to do even more. as it is up to 70% of our neighbors are living under the poverty line, and we're the largest employer. So we decided to found, which I am a co-founder of, this nonprofit, which allows us to do tree planting, educational courses, all sorts of things.
And it's quite a small community in place at Punta Morales?
Yeah, Punta Morales is a small fishing village on the Gulf of Nicoya, so on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica.
I mean, Costa Rica is absolutely beautiful. The pictures look amazing. It's basically just sea and then trees, essentially, mangroves and beautiful forests. But I can imagine it's quite challenging in terms of just access to resources, facilities and other things. Are the boats that you're building, are you sourcing, how are you sourcing the wood for sail cargo in a way that's in harmony with nature?
Yeah, 100% of the wood for the construction of the ship is locally sourced, as well as all the infrastructure at the shipyard, and locally sourced meaning from Costa Rica. It is extremely important to us and a key, chapter in our narrative of sail cargoing to highlight the fact that we cut down trees and we do so in a sustainable manner that is actually regenerative. So many people will ask us, oh, if you're so eco and you love the trees so much, why do you cut them down? Why don't you build out of steel? And a lot of people wouldn't understand that steel, often like the largest steel mines in the world, are actually in Brazil, which means that the first step of getting steel is clear cutting the Amazon, and it just continues from there. So if we wanted to really highlight regenerative resources, it would be locally sourcing trees in a sustainable way and then replanting in a multitude in that same area, which is exactly what we do.
And so you're taking, I mean, they have to be quite big, don't they? I mean, they must be mature, quite big trees. I don't know, what type of wood is it? What type of tree?
Yeah, we have a variety of types of wood. So we have Spanish cedar, as well as cedro, that's called cedro amargo in Spanish. And then we have jatoba, which is called wapinol, which is so dense it sinks in water. Oh, wow. And we have a cenicero, which is the rain tree. We have a whole number of different species. Something that's interesting, though, is that, of course, the growing time in the tropical regions is significantly longer than in a region such as Canada. So when I think about a really huge tree, or if I think of the famous royal oaks of Denmark that are some of the best shipbuilding woods in the world, that would be a 200-year-old tree. So like the white oaks of the Danish forests, specifically planted 200 years ago for shipbuilding. Those are very old trees. What we have in Costa Rica is typically a tree, and this does vary, that is around 70 years old, 70, and that'll be over around a meter or more in diameter. And this is interesting because the lifespan of a wooden ship, when cared for, can easily be 100 years. And because we give back continually, and in the future of the vessel, we have a return on our investment, and we put that also into tree planting, it means that we will actually have the ship outlive the lifespan of one of those trees, which means that it's a regenerative process when we plant them back year after year.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought as well. And I know you put a lot of energy and thought into the full life of the boat and of all the work that you're doing, because I think it's easy to make goals and basically easy to use technology to try and, I don't know, fool ourselves in some senses that we're really becoming a lot more sustainable, when often we just need to kind of get back to basics and really think through the full lifespan from, well, hopefully cradle to cradle in terms of circular thinking, and wooden ships are a beautiful thing to behold, and it's amazing to think that it will be out at sea as long as the trees that you're replanting will be growing. I guess that's how it used to always be. You would be growing or trees for projects to create new ships.
Exactly. And although technology brings us, I can't even fathom how much good technology has brought us, it also brings us sort of like an easy way out. So people focus a lot on mitigating or offsetting or credits, and it doesn't really work in the long run. You do have to examine what actions am I doing, and how in a very tangible way can I make those more sustainable or more based on a circular economy. And of course, technology does contribute to that in a positive way. So I'm not trying to slander tech or something, but I do think that when we focus too much on carbon offsets and mitigation, and you take something out of the left hand and put it in the right hand, it's like, okay, well, I still don't have anything in the left hand.
100%.
It comes down to very real, tangible feelings.
Yeah, I think we all know that offsetting isn't really going to get us to where we need to be in terms of hitting the 1.5 goal. We have to reduce, we have to change some things in a meaningful way, as well as, it's great to see reforestation and some of these offsetting projects, but I think we know that we need something bigger. And what's shipping going to do? So before we get into Veer, let's just quickly veer into this whole shipping industry, and obviously with Sail Cargo and the work that you've been doing, you've probably started talking to really interesting people. Like, I have no idea how you get a boat financed, for example. Like, how do you find the money to build a boat? So I'd be kind of interested a little bit in that. But is it taking you into domains or into groups of investors who are specifically interested in, how shipping can start to clean up its act? Because it really needs to, right?
Yes, absolutely. So just to quickly touch back on Sail Cargo, during my time there, we secured around $6 million US in investment for these multiple projects. And that was through 300 plus private impact investors, with every single one of whom I maintain personal correspondence. Looking into Veer, we are shifting into a little bit more sort of venture capital. We do have angel investors, and as well through a convertible note, we're working with some private investors as well. It's really interesting because there aren't a lot of places for companies or people to make an impactful investment in the ocean or shipping space. And I think when some people find out that this is a very tangible, technology ready option, they kind of can't believe it.
So let's talk about shipping. You mentioned that 90% of goods that we're buying has touched a shipping boat in some sense. And I mean, it's responsible, just quickly, for, I think, about 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And last year, 2021, according to the reports I read, it was about 833 million tons of CO2, which was up 5% from the year before. I've seen it as high as essentially 1 billion tons of CO2. So it's predicted to go up. They still think before, things come down. And the International Maritime Organization has start to make commitments around how much they're going to reduce CO2. So I got a bit confused, if I'm honest, because I'm just dipping in and I saw commitments of, reduction of 50%, 30%, 40%, all by different dates, the usual kind of thing. At the moment, from what I can see, they're talking about trying to reduce emissions by 40% by 2030, which is based on a 2008 number, which again, I'm not sure exactly why, but they're pursuing efforts towards 70% by 2050, and I found that wording slightly concerning. Pursuing efforts towards 70% reduction. So I'm guessing from reading between the lines that the IMO is coming under increasing pressure to really clean up the industry, and this is why we're seeing kind of changes in the levels of commitment and the scale of the promises being made. But I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. The shipping industry, I could describe it as an incredible spectacle, as in something that is not credible. And if you look up the word spectacular, it can be good or bad. Mm-hmm. So it's an incredible spectacle. And if I find that I don't focus too much of my energy on trying to keep up to date with the largest, latest, most impressive claim made by someone based on some numbers, because really, if you want to look at the fundamental base of the shipping industry, of which these, claims would be standing upon, it's still anonymous ownership of many of these vessels and their offshore credit, like the offshore banking. The shipping industry is one of the least transparent industries in the world. They still use what are called modern-day slave contracts. At the end of life, the ships are switching hands. The ownership goes to third parties, and they end up driven onto the beaches of Bangladesh, where children take apart the vessels in barefoot with what the International Labour Organization calls one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. So when shipping companies and different organizations make these big claims, all I want to say is, look, who's really accountable for any of this, guys? Like, at least reveal some people's names, or pay the taxes in the country with which you are registered, or maybe don't change vessels to third-party hands and let children clean up your garbage. So for me, all these claims are very much about getting attention, and I don't focus on them. What I focus on is technology ready solutions that I'm putting into practice as soon as possible, and I'm not focusing on those headlines whatsoever.
So what led you to take that approach and passion and create Veer? Why did you feel that you needed to go bigger than sail cargo?
Well, it kind of was an interesting personal path for me. So I started sailing on cargo ships, and engineless cargo ship in 2010, which was on the Tres Hombres, which is a wooden sailing ship with no engine. And we did load ram, actually, to go back to your previous thought, and sailed it across the ocean emission-free. And ever since then, I have been obsessing over how to make this more financially viable. And I've made a sort of personal pact with myself that I'm going to prove the value of clean shipping and show people that they could have already done it. And yeah, so when I look at Veer, I spent so much time in this tiny little office that I had, boiling hot in Costa Rica, no air conditioning with a tin roof. And I realized that I'd been saying to our prospective clients for a number of years, no to things like, no, you don't need a container. No, you don't need it to be steel. No, you don't need your ship to be faster. No, you don't. And I kept telling the clients no until I made a list on my wall of all the things I told clients no to. And then I remembered the cardinal rule: your client is always right. And so I shouldn't tell them no. And so I came together in my mind with what they had asked for, which was, a fast ship that had no leaks and containers. And I thought, well, let me give that to them. And I focused my mind on creating a vessel that answered all their problems and remained true to being emission-free. And that is what Veer is.
So talk us through that. How does it compare, and what is Veer? What is Veer? The first, Veer is the company, but you're in the pursuit of building essentially a clean shipping boat that can take all the things that you've been turning down, right? The big, steel containers. So can you describe what the boat will look like and the kinds of technologies that you're trying to adopt to make this viable?
Yeah, so Veer will look beautiful, which is not form, it is function, and that is going back to what I said about working with natural propulsion, which is the wind and the waves. These ships, the first design, will look beautiful. It is a 100 meters or 330 foot length overall steel sailing ship that transports standard containers. These first design will have 3 masts that are sporting Dynarig sail technology, which is just wind, and they will also have auxiliary or backup engines of green hydrogen. So I like to call it, rather than what's popularly called wind assist, it's hydrogen assist vessels. Mm-hmm. And they will be fast. Actually, this is one of the cornerstone elements that I wanted to bring to the table and that I approached our architects with. I said I want to have the fastest container ship that we can really make, and that's what we've created with Veer.
So it's a balancing act essentially then to get the size and the shape of the hull and all of those kind of things and I guess in relation to the masts and sails, like you need speed, so you need to have enough wind per weight and displacement of water and those kind of technical things. And you're working with shipbuilders from where?
Yes, so although I did go to a nautical college and studied a little bit of shipbuilding, and I have been named by the Royal Institute of Naval Architects as one of the most influential women of the century, there's no way I could design that ship on my own. So I approached Dijkstra Naval Architects, which are located in Amsterdam, Netherlands, and Dijkstra are widely regarded as one of the best sailing naval architecture firms in the world.
It does look stunning. I'll see if we can add a link in the bio for the podcast, because there's a very cool video of what this thing will look like. How practical is it? Like, how's it going to work in terms of getting containers on and off a boat with huge sails?
We have 2 options for that. We can have onboard cranes, which would increase our autonomous independence, and meaning we could unload or load containers ourselves. Having said that, we also can work with shoreside infrastructure to load and unload using those shoreside cranes. Because of the height of the vessel, which is 62.5 meters, which is Panamax, we will not be able to go under standard gantry cranes, but that does not mean that we're barred from industrial ports. We just have to make sure we're working with the right cranes for us.
And what's this going to hold in terms of, you said it was approximately 9 containers worth of storage on Sabre. What are we talking about for Veer?
160 TEU.
Okay, so I mean,
so 160 20-foot containers.
That's quite a big step up. And do you think it's something where you're going to have multiple, rather than just filling the whole boat full of green coffee? Is it likely to be? It could be all kinds of stuff, I guess. But have you planned the boat in relation to a specific route? And is there a specific cargo that you think would easily fill this first boat?
Yes and no. So because we are trying to build 2 vessels and working towards, but we have an agreement with the naval architects to build 6 of this design, there can be different options. We've received interest to have complete charter, so sort of renting, if you will, the whole ship for one client. But as well, we could be taking up to 160 different clients with those different containers. For us, or for what I've identified as sort of the perfect cargo, is very likely something that is like a value-added product, such that would be lightweight. So I kind of joke, but it's not a joke. High heel shoes would be one of the ideal cargoes because they weigh next to nothing and are a valuable product to be selling. But we really could be shipping anything.
Yeah, that does sound a very interesting cargo. You're basically surrounded by, I don't even know the names, but I was going to say Milano Blahnik or Blahnik, but I can't even remember that. But what's the section of the city? A boat full of shoes. I think you're going to get ribbed about that one being a female female entrepreneur.
No, we can have big hiking boots in there as well. No, but this is a joke. I mean, it's not a joke, but what I'm saying is that really, the fashion industry, there are certain industries that are more attentive to their, responsibility factors throughout their supply chain. Right now, coffee is pretty much the number 1 in the world, now followed by cacao or chocolate. The fashion industry is under heavy scrutiny as well, though, and they're becoming much more transparent about where are they getting their products, how are their products made, are we making fast fashion synthetic clothes that are ending up in the landfill? What are the conditions that those people are working in? And so obviously the fashion industry is paying increasingly high attention to their supply chain and how their different scopes are how they're affecting different parts of the world. And so for a company such as Sheep Inc., which is a beautiful sweater company that gets wool from New Zealand, this would be one of the final broken links in an otherwise sustainable supply chain. And so they're very interested in clean shipping.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. I think especially the high-end brands, they want to be able to have big claims, and at the moment there's no one to really service them in this area, is there?
That's correct. There are no options that would really serve someone like IKEA perfectly right now.
Yeah. So you said you're making 2 boats, or you're raising for 2 boats. I've got a lot of questions around just thinking around how that actually works with sailing. You need the wind, right? You need the nature to play ball, and how does it work if the conditions aren't right? I guess that's where the hydrogen backup engines kick in, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. But because we would be managing our voyage plans with a conservative average speed, which means a speed that's really lower than we expect to attain, this would allow room for some light wind days or when we would need to switch on that engine. We would be using a lower average speed. So just for some context, one vessel would have, we are working with the number 750 kilowatt engine, which would give us a range of 1,200 nautical miles on green hydrogen, which is quite a significant distance. So in reality, our backup engines are quite significant and can provide quite a range.
Yeah, and of course the wind is free and zero carbon. So whenever there is good wind, so you just make hay and have the sails up. And I guess all of this stuff is fairly automated now. Like they're significant, they're huge masts, right? There's not people on here doing the rigging stuff.
Yeah, that's correct. So the entire suit of sails can be set by one button in 6 minutes. And just if people want to see what that looks like, you can go on YouTube and search the sailing yachts Maltese Falcon and Black Pearl. So you have to type in yacht Black Pearl, or you will get Pirates of the Caribbean. And you'll see these vessels. You'll see these vessels, the two in existence that use this square sail dyno rig technology. And it's so awesome to watch these videos and how fast they go and how automated it is. But we still have people on the boat managing the vessel, so it's not autonomous, which is another type of venue shipping is trying to go down. Mm-hmm. But it is all automated, and you would not necessarily need to have any additional personnel on board.
So where do you see this going? Because I guess the first challenge is to get Veer up in the water and proving the model. And then do you see this becoming a fleet in terms of what are the other options to the shipping industry at the moment? I guess they're spending a lot of money on trying to fix the older boats that have got terrible kind of performance. But, is this do you believe it's a viable alternative for the shipping industry over the, say, midterm in terms of innovating sail boats to take some of the load off of the huge container ships?
Yes. So wind and sails have always been a viable option. Now, I'm not saying that they will replace these absolutely massive vessels that are in existence, but for certain lines or certain routes, absolutely, they can completely replace certain size vessels. I think one of the major pushbacks that wind has received, and what I've heard from different players in the industry, is that you cannot commoditize in the same way renewable energy. So you can't really put a dollar figure on the wind in the same way that you can sell fossil fuel or hydrogen or methane, different types of fuel, ammonia. So when we put a solar panel out, that sunlight touches it for free. Of course, there are costs to the technology, but there's a lot of pushback from the industry because the current shipping industry is so closely intertwined with the fossil fuel industry. Like, of course, Maersk has their own offshore oil rigs, and they're very closely tied to that because the fuel they burn is a byproduct. So it's in their favor to maintain some sort of fuel that they can commoditize and that they can control the price of. And so I think that is a major pushback.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why sometimes it feels really painful to have these discussions when you feel that there's kind of bigger forces at play and people, disruptors like yourself, Danielle, are kind of doing innovation where you think, well, hold on, there's billions of dollars in shipping and trillions, in fact, and why isn't there more innovation happening from incumbents? But I think it does, and the reason why we like to share these stories is it takes people with imagination and passion and, in your case, real sense of stewardship and duty of care around materials and thinking through these challenges to get established. And then I do believe that you're gonna have some success once you've proven the model. And I'm interested, how much does one of these boats cost? Like, if a shipping company turned around and said, hey, we want 5, like, how much is one boat? Or would you sell the boat itself?
I don't think I'm really in a position. I don't think my legal team would like to commented on that. What I can say is please email me, get in contact with me. I'd love to answer that. But another way to answer that is that in the long term or the lifespan of the vessel, it would not be it would not be a higher expense than a conventional ship. Wow.
Okay. And that's because of the cost of running is reduced because of fuel?
That is one of the major operational expenses of these vessels. So fossil fuel can be up to 60% of all OPEX in a conventional vessel.
So it makes good business sense at the end of the day. And then do you think they'll get bigger? I mean, Veer is obviously already very big, but in the scheme of things, it's not huge. So do you think it's about size, or do you think it's just about a lot more boats powered by wind, complementing, I guess, the existing big things that become slightly more energy efficient over time?
It is absolutely a combination. So many people think that when they think of shipping, they think of these massive container ships, and they think that is the epitome or the best or the answer. And that's simply not true. Those giant vessels serve those specific purposes. But if people really knew the multitude of designs of vessels on the water and the different purposes that they serve, it would probably be really shocking to some people. But essentially, if you walked into a tool shop or a mechanic shop or a woodworking shop, and you looked around at all the different tools on the wall or on the shelf, you would know, even if you didn't know what they did, that each of those tools served a different purpose. And it's the same with maritime vessels. And there's just as many different designs. And so while I can't answer if all of these vessels could ever be replaced by wind, I know that a significant portion could today.
And that's exactly what you're working on. Thank you so much for sharing this. It's massively inspiring. I really want to be there. And see when I don't know if they still break champagne on the sides of boats, but I want to be there for that moment and see this thing in the water. And actually the same for the beautiful wooden boats from Sail Cargo, to be honest, because I think it's very inspiring. I think that we talk about CO2 the entire time, but we are absolutely dependent on nature. We have whales that are doing an unbelievable job for us in the ocean that are completely unappreciated. That we obviously know about whaling, but we don't know how many whales are just hit by boats and huge container boats, etc. in all these shipping lanes, and just the general noise and pollution, how it's affecting them. And we need them to do their job so that we have a lot of phytoplankton basically consuming CO2 for us. So thought of these beautiful vessels being powered by water is such an inspiring story. Thank you for coming on, talking about it. We'll make sure that your details are in the show notes so people can get their checkbooks out and start buying these incredible boats. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be able to share about Veer and all of our work with clean shipping. I strongly encourage people to get directly in touch with me. I'm really happy to share more. So thank you again.